So hey, are you guys still waiting on the Star Wars episode? Well, keep waiting. Look, I'm sorry, I did not expect that like more than half of my entire last year would get choked off by work involved with getting the new and improved Escapist up and running. You know, then my dad died and I had to work with all of that. Anyway, it's coming soon, and what I can announce is that there will probably be at least one more preview edit from that, and that it'll also be the first really that good when it's done to be in slightly higher def video output than the ones before. Not that it'll make much of a difference with the movie footage, because the unretouched 77 Star Wars footage doesn't really have good, legitimate HD master to cut from, but you get the idea. For now, I wanted to quickly revisit something from the first really that good, which was...
If there's something strange in the neighborhood, who you gonna call?
Okay, so apparently there's going to be another new Ghostbusters movie, and it's being worked on in top secret, or was being worked on top secret, by Jason Reitman, aka original director Ivan Reitman's kid, and it's going to be an in-continuity sequel to the first movie, and not connect to or mention the female-led reboot that came out 2.5 years ago that did okay and got decent reviews, but ended up mostly notable for how much a bunch of babies got mad on the internet about it, and then stayed so mad that they're still like the only people still talking about that movie. Seriously, not only do the people who really liked Ghostbusters 2016 not think about it as much as the dudes who hated it before they even saw it, the people who made that movie don't think about it as much as those guys. Anyway, I'm a guy who both liked the new movie enough for a 3-star review at the time, and also had no problem calling out the guys who were being shitty about it.
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
And guys, just so we're clear, these pictures are both me on like Halloween and at a convention, alright? Granted, it's me like almost a decade and 60 to 75 pounds ago, but still me, right? So when I tell you you're being pathetic-ass sad nerds about something, you're being pathetic-ass sad nerds about something. So as soon as this new thing got announced in this weird back-asswards way, where they did like a trailer that's not really a trailer because they haven't cast or started making or shooting the thing yet, but they're apparently jumping into it really fast and want people on board right away because Sony Pictures is trying really hard not to have Sony Electronics sell them to someone, I started hearing from people, so what do you think, huh? This is a big deal. You mad, huh? You mad, hater? You triggered? We getting what we wanted? It bother you that we won? And I'm sitting here thinking, I think this sounds kind of cool. I'm interested to hear more. I want to see it. I've enjoyed most Ghostbusters things, so I expect I will probably enjoy this also. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be mad about and who we is in these formulations, or what's supposed to have been won or lost here.
How is Elvis, and have you seen him lately?
I mean, yes, I get that, okay, let's just actually take a shot on Ghostbusters 3 instead of a sequel to the reboot because it wasn't as big a hit as things need to be today, is going to get counted as a win by dumb people who don't know how the film business works and are simultaneously too invested and yet not invested at all in this stuff, and thus a thing I would otherwise be 100% on board with, at least being sure why not optimistic about, comes with the aggravation of knowing people who annoy me will be happy about it also, but, like, I can't care about that, you know? Those dudes are the smallest, insignificant part of what's already a pretty small and insignificant thing, and losing out yourself in order to get a petty own on some vague other, someone you dislike, is pretty dumb when you think about it, or see it in action.
Who does your taxes?
Ahem. It also doesn't really change my estimation of the 2016 movie, which I still think was a fine project that could have used another few passes at the screenplay stage, which is pretty much the case for most big studio movies that aren't being overseen by a big omniscient master planner like Kevin Feige, or the low-budget side Jason Blum, for example. It's not so much a knock on the talent as it is on time and scheduling. You want a huge example of a reason why a lot of big-time action blockbuster movies, even otherwise good ones, are kind of bad at basic storytelling today in a way that the original Ghostbusters wasn't? Okay, you know how even people who don't really like the 2016 movie, or Answer the Call, or whatever you want to call it, can pretty much agree that the big isolated action scene towards the end where they're fighting the ghosts in the middle of Times Square with all the new weapons is overall pretty cool as a series of isolated cool action beats? Well, I agree, it is cool. What it isn't is much in the way of a payoff to the story up to that point or a setup for the rest of the story to come. By the time most of this happens, everyone's character arc is either concluded or is on hold to conclude during the finale, and apart from what's brought in by the physical performance of the individual actresses, there isn't really much to each action that builds on or informs the characterizations. It's more or less 4 well-choreographed, well-executed, FX-heavy fight sequences repeating a similar motif. Lady, previously known for being funny, does something badass, please buy this when we make a toy of it. Lady, previously known for being funny, does something badass, please buy this when we make a toy of it. Lady, lady previously known for being funny does something badass, please buy this when we make a toy of it. Lady previously known for being funny does something badass, please buy this when we make a toy of it. And there's nothing super wrong with that if your goal is creating a fun movie sequence that looks cool when you see it for 2 minutes as a clip on social media and think, hey, that looks fun, I think I'll go watch that movie and or stream it when that becomes possible. But the difference between this perfectly fine in and of itself sequence and, say, Ray accidentally summons Mr. Stay Puft, crossing the streams might be the only way ending to the original movie, or more recently, stuff like the various individual action beats during the big brawl in the extended third act of the Avengers, is that those examples, or for lack of a better word, money shot moments, are largely payoff to things that have built up about the characters and story throughout the rest of the film. A lot of the just pretty good, not that good modern action movies with big effects elements don't really do that very well, or at all, and that's because you've got way less time to work on those kind of movies than you used to. Now, this is all kinds of granular and technical, and honestly a little bit boring and not entirely on topic, so condense.
Wait, do I have to explain math to you?
I liked her. That reboot was a lot of fun. Anyway, it used to be, unless you were talking about the Ray Harryhausen movies, in which case the effects were basically one guy working in his lab, you locked your screenplay and got into production and then worked out how the effect sequences were going to get accomplished because story cohesion mattered more than anything. Now, effects take so damn long not just to animate and create, but to render, and schedules are crazy constrained because they announce the release dates early, build the whole franchise, and then the rest of your schedule around that, and well, ask Lucasfilm what happens when you try to mess with the scheduling. But to make sure big effects movies get done, a lot of these films start what's called the pre-visualization or previs part of the effects process really early in production, as in before they've got the rest of the movie 100% in place. So the computer animation guys are sometimes already building entire scenes, because they need an animatic where the full effects are going to eventually go, with what at that stage have to be context-free, self-contained mini-narratives of their own based on early script drafts, director's ideas, producer input, and more often than anyone will admit, a thing we decided would look really cool that we'll figure out a reason to have happen later. So these sequences are often mostly done and ready to have actors and specific live-action elements plugged into them on the same schedule as like second unit location shooting. So by the time the elements get put together, you often end up with not always bad but off-feeling movies where the characters and dialogue scenes will feel fun and organic and arrived at from a natural place, but then the action and effects scenes, while often very elaborate and cool looking, feel like characters from the dialogue parts have put on costumes to star in a different, disconnected movie. Now, obviously it can be impossible to get a real answer on where the line is on stuff like that because everyone is invested in the mythology of Hollywood movie making as a well-oiled machine at a certain level, but you ever see a big movie where a character will die in a pointless but needlessly really elaborate violent way and think, that feels gratuitously undeserved and also doesn't feel like the movie is trying to make a narrative point with their story? Well, one way that might happen is if you spent a whole bunch of time figuring out the animation sequence to kill a character off in an awesome, cool way, but didn't necessarily know which character it was going to be or what their prior story would have been up to that point. Just saying, that's how something like that might happen.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
Huh, that was a bit of a longer tangent than I might have initially planned for that, but worth it, maybe. In any case, I do have to wonder how the rest of the reveal, or at least the heavily leaked rumors about the reveal, vis-a-vis Reitman's Ghostbusters movie would be going over if a certain strata of the Ghostbusters fandom hadn't already pissed itself dry about the reboot, i.e. yes, this is a follow-up to the original two set in the same continuity, but we don't really know if the rest of the cast will come back yet, and also the again rumored hook is that it's going to be a movie about a team of young kids who get into some kind of ghostbusting situation somehow related to whatever happened in New York back in the 80s, but maybe not in New York and probably in the modern day. So basically the big saving throw here is a feature-length adaptation of the most popular publicity still from Stranger Things Season 2. I mean, I'm fine with it, sounds like an interesting, kind of honest, definitely different place to go with it, but without having 4 women to have taken their frustrations at finally having to accept that a proper Ghostbusters 3 wasn't ever going to happen out on, I can't imagine that the internet would be as amenable as it is going to be now to what's essentially Ghostbusters babies.
Oh, is this what you want? Something more familiar?
Then again, I remember reading the Max Landis pitch for Ghostbusters 3, which used to be going around back when we were letting Max Landis be a thing, and I also remember how terrible and pointless and crammed with stupid fan service that was, but also how many supposed fans couldn't wait to tell him how amazing it sounded. Anyone else ever see that thing? It was terrible. Basically a less good version of Extreme Ghostbusters, but with Ray instead of Egon, and I think Oscar the Baby from Ghostbusters 2 was one of the new Ghostbusters now. Gozer comes back, and it turns out Slimer is the ghost of some guy Vince Clortho killed back in the day, and they need him to open a labyrinth, and there's this giant dumb ending where Walter Peck shows up and saves everyone because he's the mayor of New York now, and this time he believes the Ghostbusters right away and calls in like an army of other Ghostbusters from all over the world or something. I mean, it was just bad. And then I feel like it all goes back to the same place I kind of touched on in Really That Good and a couple other In Bob We Trust episodes about Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is kind of similar to Back to the Future in that they're both, Ghostbusters more so because the merchandise was so much more successful, thought of as these 80s kids family franchise things when neither of them were designed to be like at all, and it basically happened by accident because the boomer nerds writing and directing them and having fun getting to do big budget, kinda naughty comedy takeoffs on genre stuff they loved as kids hadn't totally cued in on the idea that Spielberg and Lucas had turned that same stuff into the new hotness for current generation kids, and that was who was going to go really nuts for these movies even though they weren't made for them at all.
Don't everybody thank me at once.
So even though the animating idea for Back to the Future was, hey, let's do the time machine, but now it's a weird sex comedy where like a high school guy goes back to the 50s and meets his parents when they were his age, and like his eventual mom thinks he's cute and that interrupts the stuff with his eventual dad, and now he has to get them to still hook up or he won't be born, and isn't that awkward? And Ghostbusters was, yeah, Dan, that sci-fi fantasy epic about shooting Lovecraft monsters with lasers is pretty awesome, but maybe if we pare it down a bit and it's just about 4 regular dopey assholes starting a company to do that in New York, we could actually make the movie. But then they come out right in the middle of the 80s kid genre movie explosion, and there you go. That's who your audience turns out to be. Let's make a cartoon. And honestly, had the real Ghostbusters cartoon not been surprisingly good and the toys not sold really well, I doubt they would have done Ghostbusters 2, and we probably wouldn't be having any of these conversations. And as such, my suspicion, I stress speaking as a Ghostbusters fan myself, is that a lot of the most hardcore, impossible to satisfy fans are guys who love the cartoon first, then discovered and also came to love the movie, especially because its acknowledged existence as an all-time great comedy justified their continued love of the show and the brand in general as adults. And what these same people really want from any hypothetical official Ghostbusters 3 is for it to bring into being some kind of perfect amalgamation of the super toyetic comic booky cartoon version and the smart pseudo-sophisticated grown-up live-action comedy version that's kind of only ever existed in their mind's eye, but no one actually wants to try and recast the original actors, and it's almost as though a collective idea of what a franchise could have been has been gestating in the fandom brain intestine long enough that it has its own wholly independent identity, independent of anything that's ever been, which does happen sometimes, especially with how hard the present-day entertainment industry leans on the franchise concept to maximize profits and hardly exclusive to Ghostbusters.
No! It can't be!
What is it?
It can't be!
What did you do, Ray?
You can see the same kind of effect with Superman. It's been 32 years since the last Christopher Reeve movie, and the culture hasn't really been able to move on from that version of the character, at least in live action. But when you ask people, so were those the most perfect Superman movies anyone could ever possibly make? They immediately like, well, no, but if you put like parts of 1 and 2 into one movie, or maybe if Zack Snyder had used the John Williams music and not desaturated the colors so much, it's just the way it is for some of these things, until it's not. So, given all of that, wow, I thought this was going to be a short one. Have I forgotten how to be short? Am I still interested in Ghostbusters babies, or whatever they decide to call this? I mean, sure, like I said, I feel like getting over having any strong feelings one way or the other about there being basically no such thing as downtime between revivals, reboots, or whatever anymore is one of the healthiest things for my psyche, both as a critic and consumer of this stuff I ever did.
This reminds me of the time you tried to drill a hole through your head. Remember that?
That would have worked if you hadn't stopped me.
It's just very freeing to realize that it matters as much as you need it to, and you can just, like, choose not to care. Like, I finally just got done watching the She-Ra reboot, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. I mean, it's not for me, obviously. It's a show for little girls. I watched it because I'm a big fan of all things Masters of the Universe back in the day, and I thought, hey, this is pretty good. I'll probably watch more of this eventually when they make it. If these same people do He-Man as well, I'll probably watch that too, curious to see how it goes. If someone else does He-Man and the two aren't going to be like a connected thing anymore because reasons, that's fine too. Maybe that's a good idea, or maybe not. And if not, someone else will probably do it another way soon enough. Shit, how many Ninja Turtles reboots are we on at this point? A lot. The answer is a lot. And I'll still contend the best version is that first movie, and I'll include the black and white comics. Hell, they just rebooted Transformers with Bumblebee, and they didn't even know it was going to be a reboot while they were making it. So the next Ghostbusters is probably going to be Kid Ghostbusters, maybe, and it's going to be in continuity to the first two, so probably Ray, maybe Winston, maybe Janine, maybe Dana, probably not Venkman, but who knows with Bill Murray anymore. And either way, they'll probably use the classic music, and original Slimer will probably show up, and maybe Gozer, the Terror Dogs. Am I down for it? Hell yeah, I'm down for it. Would I have been down for it if this is what they'd done instead of the first reboot? Yeah, absolutely. I bet a lot of the same people would have been pissed, though, just for different reasons. Do I think this vindicates the dumb, sad, incel 4chan brats who are still all moist and shaky about the 2016 movie? No, but if we let them think so, do you think they'll shut up about it finally? No, I don't think so either. Do I think it erases or in some way intentionally disrespects the 2016 movie unnecessarily? Also, no, but since people are going to act like it does anyway, they should probably, just do or say something to make it more clear that's not the case. But please, maybe not through some kind of tedious multiverse thing where it's all one continuity with portals or whatever, after all, because that's already making me so goddamn tired to think about. And you all get that Spider-Verse was good in part because it took that kind of ridiculous bullshit and made it good, not just because they did it, right?
See you on the other side, Ray.
Huh. I'll say this much. I was absolutely wrong to discount Sony and then production head Amy Pascal. Everything can be a cinematic universe business model back then. I legitimately thought they were bullshitting when right up through the 2016 movie coming out, they were still talking about, we're going to do this reboot, and then we could also do a sequel to the originals, we could do an animated movie, we could do TV, all kinds of things. That just sounded like so much studio wishful thinking and investor pumping to me, but I guess they weren't kidding, and given now that their official Spider-Man movie, the Spider-Verse animated movie, and for some reason Venom are all huge hits, I can't say they were wrong about what will work and what won't, from which I guess the new takeaway kind of has to be, wow, sorry, Dark Universe, it was even less the market than we thought. You just really, really sucked.